Hi, welcome to Let's Humanize the Workplace. And yes, it's hot here in Amsterdam. My name is Vivian Acquah, the inclusive workplace wellness advocate. Sorry, apologies. It's very hot here in Amsterdam, and I'm trying to do the best that I can with this episode, but also know that this episode is very close to my heart. So it's touching and it's also warming as well. And I'm truly excited to introduce my guest speakers later on. But today I want to highlight a lot of things. So first of all, I know that it's Pride Month, and of course, I'm going to dedicate an episode towards Pride at the workplace. That will be in not next week, but a week after. It will be amazing. But just to show a universal Pride flag, just to show my support as well, and also realizing that Pride should not only be celebrated in the month June or July. No, it should be slated all year long. So 365 days in a year, right? And the other number that I want to highlight as well is number 99. I think that maybe you've guessed it, but it's the 99th episode of Let's Humanize the Workplace. So it's crazy. I started somewhere in November 2019, and ever since up to now, I've done 99 episodes. Well, today is the 99th episode, and I'm so excited. So next time, I will highlight on the 100th episode, which is going to be amazing, and also with amazing guest speakers as well, the same as tonight. But I just wanted to share that as well. Tonight, like I shared, tonight I want to touch base on DEI from a parent's perspective, right? Because realizing that there is a lot of conversation, or there are a lot of companies out there right now who are doing their best to amplify diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I also want to share a different perspective, which might be forgotten or which might not be seen, but realizing that diversity, equity, and inclusion also has an impact at home. And today I'm going to bring three people as well to highlight it as well. So bear with me so that I can introduce them properly. And the first one that I'm going to introduce is Yuli Kim, who is a DEI consultant who believes in a sense of belonging is a prerequisite for anyone to perform their best at work. And then we have another, Julie Kratz, is a highly acclaimed inclusive leadership trainer who led teams and produced results in corporate America for nearly 2 decades, but also she's the author of Little Allies. Magali Aimée Toussaint is providing D&I consulting and coaching services to international organizations in an innovative environment for human-like voices. So welcome everybody for tonight's episode, or today's episode, right? The first question that I want to ask is, why do we need to humanize the virtual workspace? And I'm going to start with Julie Kratz.
Thanks, Vivian, for having me on. It's so fun to be with such a great group of women. Yes. So before the pandemic, I used to say this a lot: work and life coexist. They're two spheres of our life that very much integrate and overlap, and it's messy, and can't be one person at work and one person at home. I think we've all discovered that in the pandemic. That is for sure true. And I think this is really important for a topic I speak about: allyship and inclusion. You can't just be an ally at work. You have to be one at home too. So if you're not being inclusive with your partner, your family, your friends, then you're probably not showing up in a great way at work too. So these spheres of our lives are very much overlapped, and we need to be a full human in both of them.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll bring it back to Magali. Can you share?
Yeah. Basically, the workplace tend to be sometimes focusing on doing, but the reality, we're not human doing, we are human beings. Meaning that, when we deal with parents, especially during this pandemic, we deal with people, we tend to forget about that. So workplace is not about being robot, it's about being human, so we can be productive and healthy.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. And Julie Kim. What do you have to share?
Yeah, why is it important to humanize the workplace? I think it's important because it impacts our psychological well-being, which it has a direct impact on our sort of mental wellness and our performance, right? I mean, when you look at children, they perform their best when they're happy. We're the same. We're just a little bigger children, right? A little bit taller, a little bit bigger, and we think a little bit wiser. But I interpret humanization as looking after each other. So that's humanization, right? Like I have your back, kind of sense of safety. And yeah, so a sense of safety, and that's a sense of belonging. So I believe a sense of belonging is a prerequisite for anyone to perform their best at work. So yeah, the same for children, same for adults.
Thank you. I have a special person who's coming in right now. He is standing next to me. He doesn't want to show up. Orlando, do you want to say hi?
Oh,
Hi,
That's my
Orlando.
7-year-old, and he is gone with the wind.
so cute.
It's his bedtime. So let's start with you, Magali. Can you share one reason why it is important to educate kids about allyship?
Because the kids, they are like the future leaders, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The next generation are future leaders. When people say my girl is a princess, I say, she's a boss. She's a leader. Yeah. Basically, this is the basic thing. If we don't want Trump, sorry for the people who may like Trump, if we don't want Trump leaders, we need to do the job now. Yeah. So I think that's really one of the basics, and also putting that in their minds, because my daughter has curly hair, she's mixed, she's not black enough, she's not dark enough for some people, but I put her in her mind that she's 2 and I tell her, you're beautiful. I do the hair with her. So she brings the confidence, but she also enables that with other kids. And that's an important principle for me. So that's about it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And Julie K. Sorry, Yuli Kim.
Yeah, no worries. That's okay. Well, let me say, I have a confession. Like, I'm Asian, as you can see. But I'm Asian, lesbian, and my children are biracial, Asian and Caucasian. Allyship to me is, I think people think about like taking care of other people or caring for other people. But allyship to me is about caring about yourself, being able to stand up for yourself. It's like the airline announcement. You have to put your mask first before you put the mask on your children. So when I talk about allyship with my children, or at least the oldest one, it's about protecting yourself and being strong for yourself, and do the same for others. So allyship, when I talk about allyship, it's about self-protection, about self-confidence, and extend that to other people, like treat people with dignity and respect, like you like to be treated. And I think it's super important to teach that to our children.
Yeah, I love that. And Julie Kratz?
Yeah. I think of allyship as being much like Yuli does, like being supportive of others and yourself, right? I love that self-care aspect to it. But what I found is I've been teaching allyship in the workplace for the last 7 years. And talking to adults is like kind of pointless. I mean, I hate to say that my work is not pointless, but your biases are pretty well baked later in life. Like our biases are pretty well cemented at age 12. They start to form between ages 2 and 4. So if we think talking to somebody, at the twilight of their career is going to reshape all of that programming and all of those biases we're carrying around in our brains, then it might be too late. But what if we started the conversation earlier? What if we helped people understand how to be helpful, how to be supportive, that we do see differences? Personal pet peeve of mine, being raised in the Midwestern United States, very more conservative part of the country, unfortunately. Some people follow the thinking of the political leader you mentioned, Magali, not me. But all that to say, like I was raised to be colorblind. We don't see color. We don't treat anybody differently. Racism's over, sexism's over. Like, that was really unhelpful and extremely confusing when I entered the workplace in the early 2000s, I was like, okay, we're all equal. And then it's like, I looked around and was like, what? This doesn't feel equal. Like, where did all the women go? Why do we not have any people of color in our leadership team? It just felt so starkly different than all of my lived experiences before that. So I think start the conversation earlier with our kids, help them understand we do see differences. We can celebrate those differences. And here in the United States, biracial is the largest growing racial demographic for Gen Z. And we're approaching this next generation that's entering the workforce is largely non-white, which is unusual. Like that is something new. And it'll continue to happen. So, to sugarcoat this or pretend like these problems don't exist is just not helpful. And it's not going to generate those future leaders that you talked about, Magali.
I think we need to elevate what you just said right now because here in Europe, there seems to be an ostrich mechanism or ostrich effect where we keep our head in the sand, believing that when we hear no diversity, we don't speak no diversity, and we don't see diversity, right? That's happening at the moment with a lot of companies. I'm not saying all companies, but a lot of companies in Europe, and we have to do our best. You just saw my son earlier, and it's because of him that I'm standing up. It's because of him, but I'm also teaching him how to be an ally for other peoples and how to be an ally for girls and how to show up for girls so that we can do better as well.
Yeah.
I can see a question from Marjolein, who is a previous guest speaker as well. Is it easier to support others when you have taken good care of yourself first? What's your take on?
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
I think, I was raised, I didn't have a role model. My mom was depressed. I was the parent emotionally from a young age. I model some things about not taking care of myself, working too hard, being underpaid. But because of that, I've learned to really care for myself, to put boundaries. It's something I'm still learning. And for me, it's even more important now because my daughter is looking at everything I do. She's eating all my food. She's doing everything. She's taking everything I have.
It will be worse when they get older.
I know. So the thing is, I cannot be like the mother say, do this and do that when I don't even do that for myself. Yeah. So when I do my hair, I have had natural hair since I'm 18 for 20 years. And now it's even more important, So I do all these little things, but also trying to teach her, like she sees like, mommy, daddy. And I'm like, yeah, but sometimes you have two mummies. Sometimes you have two daddies. So trying to explain her all these things. But the first thing is I take care of myself. I do my morning routine. I do my meditation. Or sometimes I do it with her. She's not doing the full meditation, but at least I do with her. I run with her. I take the buggy. I put my reggae on. And you see me running in Amsterdam for 30 minutes because I need to be happy. And then when I stop, she's like, Mommy, you run, and then I do that. So, but as you said, Julie, they are learning from a young age. So the thing is, sometimes you have to treat yourself bad to learn to treat yourself good. And I'm doing that every day. So we'll see.
Yeah, Julie Kratz.
Yeah, I love what Magali said. We're modeling for them everything, the behaviors, the inclusive behaviors and the not so inclusive behaviors, and our kids are taking note. I notice, for example, I love the running example. I go for a walk every day, and that's like my daily self-care habit. And I'm like unapologetic about it. Like, no, you're not coming. My 7-year-old, you're not coming with me because you have to go to the bathroom or like shenanigans happen when she comes. Like, this is not the same relaxation moment. But modeling that for her, like, it's okay for me to care about myself. And that's not selfish. Like, that's really important to me. And I want you to be able to take a stand for yourself in that same way. And I notice little things. Just watching, I think for parents, if you're wondering how to be more inclusive and model things for your kids, be really careful about the media they're consuming. These YouTubers and things they're into, and it's not a very diverse set of folks. And movies are getting better, but they're still very ill represented as far as like actual human diversity that exists. It's very monolithic. Books. The bookshelf is super problematic. They do a book study every year in the United States, and there are more characters that are animals in books than kids of color, for example. So just watching like the images we're putting in front of our kids and modeling those inclusive behaviors, like Magali said, I think I just want to amplify that. Like it's little things. It's the little things that they pick up on too.
I do also want to piggyback on what Julie Kratz just shared, because Orlando is 7 right now. And what we love to do, we love to watch cartoons. I'm a Disney fan, but also other cartoons fan. And ever since being in this DEI space, I cannot watch certain cartoons anymore. I had this with Mulan. I had this with Sleeping Beauty. I cannot watch it because my stomach goes left and right with, this is wrong, this is not right. Why should a woman be safe? Why can a woman not save other people, right? And so many other things, so many ethnicity challenges, which when you are sharing a story where you're not using the original story from where it originates, or not letting those people share their story as it should be. And that's something that I'm struggling with. Sometimes I don't want him to watch certain classics because I don't believe in them. It's not fitting in this whole inclusive space anymore.
Wow.
Julie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, the limiting the media access doesn't seem to. I mean, it helps, but that's not a solution, right?
Yeah.
Because they go to school and then girls bring the pink backpack and talk about princesses. I'm going to marry a prince and all that stuff. So the best I can do, I think, is to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can do. That just show her, not just tell her what to do, but just if I only hang out with, for example, Japanese friends here because I'm comfortable with them, with the language and everything, or the culture, then she would just think, well, she's always hanging out with a certain group of people, so why don't I just hang out with friends X and Y? But if my daughter sees me hanging out with different kinds of friends, Japanese friends or people, friends from school, and then moms and dads and parents, and then she sees the benefit of hanging out and then being friends with different kinds of people, so that she won't get upset if friend X doesn't want to play with her, and she'll just say, okay, fine, then I'll play with friends Y, and that's okay because I do that all the time. So I'm the role model. I need to be the role model for her. I can't just tell her what to do, but I need to do it too. Like, for example, we tell children, no candy, no chocolate, this and that. They say, why? I know you eat at night. They're not stupid. They can open the cupboard and find things. And so I try to not to tell my children what to do, but just kind of show how I do it, how I do certain things. Because I'm doing my very best. But my daughter picked out this little figurine, said, well, I don't want to play with this boy. And the figurine had short hair. And I'm like, are we gender stereotyping in my house? Really? Boys, girls, they can have, short hair. I have short hair. Am I a boy? Like, no. Okay, there we go. Fine. It's just a figurine. So, yeah.
Yeah, the challenges that we face, but also it's important for us to keep educating, keep using different books. So what I love is that Pixar is doing their best, and I'm using those short stories to share with my son that this is another version. This is what I'm doing with the work for inclusions. This is 2 men, or maybe a shorter guy who wasn't able to participate, but now he's able to participate. Even though he has special abilities, they can still participate. So there are different ways to share these stories as well. And also Marjolein is also having a challenging time. So yes, it's very silly to rewatch the classic. And I hope that the people who are creating cartoons, or maybe are affiliated with Disney, or maybe are the illustrators of Disney, or the storytellers, maybe it's time to rewrite the script. Make it up to date. Make it up to date to now. Give it a version 2, or maybe a version 3 as well. So I wanted to go to the next question, and that is, Julie, can you share why? No, do parents? My bad. Do parents have enough support to teach DEI at home?
Is that one for me, Vivian?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, which Julie? You know, I found myself, so I've done DEI work for the last 7 years, and I did some before in corporate America before venturing out on my own. But all that to say, I thought I'd be really equipped to have this conversation at home with my kids. And then what happened last summer, I'm sitting there in tears watching the news and documentaries and just all the anti-racism content I could get my hands on, and realized, as my daughter was asking me, why are these things happening? Why are Black people dying? And it's like deeply troubling to hear those questions. And I would sit there and I was very emotional about it. And I would just, I don't know. And I think a lot of parents, especially white parents here in the United States, like, we don't talk about it because we don't know the answers ourselves, and we're scared of where the conversation's going to go. And so that's our privilege showing too. Like, the kids of color don't get to like pretend that they're not a kid of color. Like, they have to have the conversation about police and things to protect them and keep them safe. So, we really engaged, I would say, very much more. It started out a couple years ago when I started an inclusion school podcast with my friend Simone to have these conversations with kids. But I realized I was still woefully unprepared, even doing this work for a living, to have that conversation with my kids. But I would say, in addition to what everyone said here today, we can't protect our kids. We can't insulate them fully from these experiences, and they will see things. Just last month on the school bus riding home, my daughter had, kind of first grade. So it's like a crush on a boy. And a white girl told her that it was illegal for them to get married because he was not white. And so, like, if you think these things aren't happening, right? They are happening. And I'm so thankful she told me. And she told me, yeah, I just told her that was racism. She had the language. So kids need to know, like, what racism is, to call out racism when they see it. Especially if you're of the majority group. You have an obligation to humanity to do better. And so, yes, I think parents desperately need resources. The cool thing is that, just like y'all mentioned, movies are getting better, books representation is getting better. We have to demand these as parents. Barbie's doing some really cool stuff with anti-racism even. So it's like, it is possible to pivot. It's not too late for organizations to get into this work and supply these tools. But yes, I think we are all on a journey, and I think the conversation at home is really important and also admittedly hard. But I'll share some resources in the chat too.
Definitely. And also, Magali, what do you have to share?
Yes and no. I mean, for me, it's more like, yes, in a way, I'm very strong with my beliefs, so I try to incorporate everything. And I'm very aware when I go and buy clothes for my daughter. And then when I go and I see only pink and you're a princess, and sometimes I go most often in the boys like section because I don't want her to wear like a bikini at the age of 2. I mean, what's the point? I just want her to have comfortable clothes because she loves running. She sees me running, so she loves running. I don't care about these things. So, and I sometimes go to the counter, like, do you have like gender neutral clothes, like something like kids, like she doesn't need like a mini skirt or something? So in a way, yes and no. So I have to be very, very conscious about what I buy for my daughter. I'm like almost like a no pink, sometimes pink, but I'm very like, so I think sometimes it's quite hard for us. Like, and I'm really trying to teach her how I bought her like a couple of dolls, black, Asian. I really try to have, I'm very conscious, but in a way, when I go to the daycare, I try to ask, do you have diverse kids? What are the kids there? I don't want her to be the mixed, only the mixed kid. But I think it's yes and no. We have a more and more, things happening for us, but there's still the subtle things happening, like pink for girls, or, people call like, these little subtle things that are happening. But you have to be very conscious and very active. Otherwise, I think it's easy to follow whatever people are asking you. And she's not at the stage where she goes to school yet. So I'll have to have this conversation, because
Yeah.
she will be dealing with, stereotypes and all of this. Yeah.
And it's definitely a reminder for every year that she evolves to share the story in a different lens, right? Because I had the unfortunate task to share what happened to George Floyd, because here in the Netherlands they kept showing that video over and over again, or at least a summary of that video. And what I did in the beginning was just switch away, because it's not something that a 6-year-old should witness. But one time I was too late and he saw it. And then I realized that the double parenting for me, it started very early. It started at an age that I'm not ready for this conversation, but I have to share it with him because it's important for him to realize what's happening, what is he seeing, instead of him creating his own narrative. So his dad is Dutch. He shared some part, and I shared that very simple. George Floyd died because of the color of his skin. And his one question was, is anybody going to hurt you, mom? And that question, when you get that, you are paralyzed. You don't know what to say. At least for me, it felt like I did not say anything for hours, but I replied with, I'm okay. Nobody's going to hurt me. But to me, it felt like I was telling my son a lie because I cannot guarantee my safety. But it also led me towards creating a platform that it's called Amplify DEI, also led towards me supporting other people in their journey, wherever they are, because sometimes we seem to forget where people are at. We want everybody to be at the level that we are, but not realize or not thinking that some people need to take time to marinate, right? Some things need to take time to consume. We have to respect people to let them consume the information so that they can walk forwards in their journey to do better. Yuli Kim.
Yes. So my oldest is 5, and it's never too early to start a discussion. But I wanted to start somewhere she can sort of relate to. So she see friends have mom and dad, and some friends only have mom or dad, single parents. And we have 2 moms, and she knows the difference. So we talk about that. Some people have 2 moms and 2 dads, and it's diverse. She's like, okay, fine. Well, this is all I know. And I ask her, do you see some kids sometimes pick on somebody because they're wearing glasses or short or, long hair and this, that? Like, well, silly enough, adults do that as well. And it's not the sort of innocent bullying. It gets worse and worse and worse. And the ultimate punishment is death or murder. We're not there yet. We will get there.
Yeah.
Age appropriately, I introduce injustice around her classroom, but also around in the adult world. And that's why I volunteer, because I work in a DEI space, and I develop learning and development program at Workplace Pride Amsterdam. So to advance LGBTIQ plus inclusion in the workplace. So I have that experience, but I don't have lived sort of experience per se when it comes to race. I mean, I have negative experiences, but nothing compared to my friends of color. And the darker it gets, the worse it gets, as they explain. Some of my friends explain. So I volunteered, and I collected I asked some parents, can you share your experience to talk about safety from your perspective, friends from Nigeria or friends from Portugal or different places around the world? What's your experience like living in Amsterdam? And they have more powerful stories to share with the parents, that because this family is the smallest community that can, start the evolution, change, right, of behavior or the way of thinking. So, because teaching my children with street smart isn't enough. We need more people. We need army of people, supportive parents who care about safety, psychological and physical safety for our children. So that's where I'm at. right
I
now?
was supposed to ask the question and this question because normally what I do is talk about the workplace, and now I'm talking about the space at home. But to start with this question, the workplace is connected to our personal space. Um, what can you share for leaders to understand why it is important to educate employees about diversity, equity, and inclusion so that they can bring the right elements to their home? I'll start with Magali.
Yeah. Again, like, with this thing about covering up,
Mm,
you've probably know that, I think I remember my first, real job, business job, there was this, I had my afro and this colleague touching my hair from the back. And I scream, like, I'm full, I'm authentic, I'm myself. I send an email to the whole company, we were 50. So, and I say, I'm not a pet, don't touch my hair. And my own manager telling me, oh, stop being so savage or something like that, something like along the line. The thing already, I know I'm not safe. I know I don't want to show my potentials. I don't want to bring value. So already it's important to talk about DEI because for him it was innocent. Oh, it's fun, But the thing is, for me, what can I tell to my daughter now about my work experience? And what is he going to tell his kids about people who has different hair? So the thing is, one important thing is, we tend to separate work and, and the personal life, but it's intertwined. It's both. We're holistic. When I bring my fears or my concerns, if I pretend, and sometimes you have to, but if I pretend I'm not authentic, you're like, what is she hiding? But I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling good. Someone touched my hair. I don't feel I want to bring my best. You need to do something in this workplace. So it's entertaining. We are human at the end of the day. And when I say diversity and inclusion or diversity, equity and inclusion, is not like a big thing that we put on a box. It's basically human. It's people. It's behavior. It's our mindset. It's who we are. It's part of our DNA. We are all very diverse. So it's important thing to talk. And it's not simple, but we need to start there so people can feel safe and parents can be also themselves. And I can also bring and share great stories to my daughter. So when she will contribute, she will say, yes, I can have my afro, I can shave my head, I can, do whatever I want, but I'll be like valued for who I am.
Vivian, I think you're muted.
yes, I was muted. And Julie, can you say something, Yuli Kim?
Yuli Kim? How
Kim,
can it be
yes.
Magali? That was like, bam. Well, like I said, I use children as an example. When they're happy, they perform their best. They learn the best. There's so many studies suggest, scientific studies, academic studies say that when people are happy, they perform their best. And there's so many negative touch points when you're slightly different, right? Color or culture or language or sexual orientation, gender identity, whatever those intersectional, personal characteristics. The more layers you have, more likely you are forced to experience those negative touch points. And they're deadly costly for organizations. Negative touch points are so costly. And I'm not just talking about the cost or performance, but again, psychological well-being and mental health, wellness of people. And for me, I want my children to know, be ready. It's wild out there. But again, we need to teach Asia properly, right? So the classroom, workplace, children, adults, we're bigger. And again, we think we're smarter, but man, our behavior is pretty similar, So discrimination and harassment doesn't suddenly happen in the workplace. It happens way, way, way before that, right? So that's why I think it's so super important for us to be talking about this with the children. And we also, adults, should and can change our behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it's a long journey, but at least we need to talk about that. At least,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely.
Like
I
Julie
mean,
says, like, oh, my job is not meaningless. I don't think you. I think it's so meaningful of the things that you do, and the change doesn't happen as quick as we wish them to, happen. But I think it's super important that we keep talking about this dialogue from racial viewpoint and gender and sexual orientation, all points, touch points. So,
yeah. Yeah. And don't forget the people special abilities as well, because
yeah,
they are often
indeed.
also excluded as well. But thank you, Julie Kim. And going over to Julie Kratz.
Yeah. I just want to underscore what was already said. It was really
Yeah.
beautiful. And thanks for sharing that story, Magali. I can't believe when I started talking with women of color about their experiences in the workplace, like all of them had several hair touching examples. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what? No one tries to touch my hair. Like, what is up with that? Like, that was just so
Mm-hmm.
appalling to me. But I think just the last thing I'd say that builds off of what you already said is like, as long as not all people feel seen, heard, and belong, then no one can really feel seen, heard, and
Exactly.
belong. Like the lowest denominator, like if we're excluding anyone, this isn't a good place for anyone. And I wish people, instead of like looking at this as a zero-sum game, I win, you lose, like it's really an infinite game. Like we're all combining, creating more
Mm-hmm.
together. So for a girl to grow up with the programming of, you could be a princess or, whatever problematic things, just keeping girls shushed and labeling them bossy for leadership behaviors, like that's just one example. But kids of color too, getting the message of like, well, you can't do that, or
Mm-hmm.
you're being aggressive, or being surprised by them being articulate. Like these little microaggressions that children do experience add up to not feeling a sense of belonging. And that's just like, it's just not okay with me. Like
Yeah.
bottom line, like not okay, especially for children. Are just too innocent and too beautiful to not deserve equality, especially based on just arbitrary traits about themselves like skin color and
Mm-hmm.
gender identity. It just seems completely ridiculous. And so doing this work every day, I think it can be exhausting. If you're a parent that's like, whoa, opening this can of worms is going to be a hard conversation with my kids, it is. I'm not going to tell you that it's not. You just got to keep showing up, though. You have to be consistent about this. You have to be intentional about this, and things do start to improve. So I agree. Let's all keep talking about this, especially with kiddos.
Definitely. And also realizing that we as parents, we can create our own toolkit, right? I know that a lot of parents or a lot of people are looking towards the school system, but here in the Netherlands, the school system mm, isn't very near when it comes to integrating DEI education material in the school system. So it's upon us to educate our kids as well, and use books. Use There are so many platforms out there, but also a good YouTube version. Sesame Street has a variation of showing up as an ally, but also sharing what diversity means and what it means to have two dads, or what it means to have two moms, or what it means to have a different parenting style that was the traditional, because there is no traditional right now, and also what it means if a child comes out instead of a he as a she. That's those transformations that are also going on in Netherlands, and we need to build empathy and activate empathy within our kids, that they have to empathize with the new gender that this child is wanting to adopt as well. I'm lost for words, because sometimes it's very hard to be a moderator, be a host, and listening to all these stories, because it's touching the heart. And I hope that those who are watching, those who are parents, or those who want to become parents, or those who are aunties or uncles or grandparents, so take this in, listen today, but also rewatch this episode or listen again, because it's so impactful what everybody have been sharing about how we can support our kids, but also to learn things from the parental perspective as well. And it has come to my last question now. We are halfway through 2021, And what would be your wish for 2025 when it comes to humanizing the workplace and DEI from a parent's perspective? Julie Kratz.
My hope, one word, accountability. I really
Yes,
hope
yes,
organizations are held
yeah,
accountable,
yeah,
just like any other part of your
yeah,
business. You'd be held
yeah,
accountable for this too. So
yeah.
we're starting to see that happening here in the States a bit, not as much as I'd like to see. And I think the same goes, for the conversations outside the classroom, because you're right. I mean, I don't think we can look to our school systems to drive this conversation. We as parents have to come together, and especially I think parents that might not think they're diverse or might not think they have to talk about these things. Like, yeah, you absolutely have to.
Hmm.
Like, that is not a choice for certain types of people. It needs to be a conversation for all people. So
Yeah.
I hope we have more allies in the conversation too.
Definitely. And especially, I read somewhere in the States, there are some states that are removing the conversations of talking about
Yep.
race and talking about different diversity or diverse topics as well. So don't only depend on the school system, bring it in at home as well.
Yeah, one fact, just to build off what you said, Vivian,
Hmm.
critical race theory is like the big
Yeah.
thing that's very controversial here in the States. And it's really just
Hmm.
the acceptance that racism exists. But there are more states now that are banning critical race theory than mandating the teaching of Black history. And so you think about that as a huge problem, right? And just bringing awareness to that issue, I think is something as parents we can all do, and just saying that's not okay with me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Magali.
I think for me, it's maybe from the coaching perspective, because what is happening is kids who are bullying or who are racist, or it's, I think when you don't love yourself, you don't love others.
Hmm.
And this is what we teach to kids from a younger age. So already I'm a coach, by profession. So I'm already thinking when she's 4, I'm going to coach her on emotional intelligence, and I'm a planner, so it's crazy. But and I also have this book that I read to her.
Yes,
Like
definitely.
she's 2,
Definitely.
but she already unconsciously it's there.
Yeah.
But I wish like parents would take more time with their kids to teach them the basics of life, to
Yeah.
avoid racism. It's like they need to love themselves for who they are, to just like teach them, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay, especially for Black mothers. I don't really cry in front of my mother for a reason, but I want to allow the cry for my daughter. Self-love, self-care. And I think that's the basis, because if you love yourself, you can love others, and that racism is or any type of discrimination is bad.
Hmm.
And and I think I wish that parents would take more time with their kids. If I have to not do an assignment, I try to finish early at work, from work, and spend time with my daughter. And I think that's the basis. And I hope kids and parents will spend more time, but work will allow that, because some parents have to work crazy and they don't see their kids growing up, and then they shape their world and they end up doing wrong things. So that's really one important thing. And one last thing also is daycare in the workplace. like if you want to breastfeed, you just go, you put your boob out and you just like have your baby, you do your thing.
Yeah.
Just allowing more of this, daycare. And I don't have to choose between being a mother or a parent or a father, and being like a best employee or whatever. So I want this to happen in 2025.
I love that wish, and thank you for sharing. And Julie Kim?
Gender equality for
Mm.
men. Let me elaborate on this
Yes,
from the
please do.
parent
Please
perspective.
do.
Yeah, because I gave birth to our children twice, so I've seen from this view. And for the first time, I'm from looking at this, labor and everything from the other view. I'm not giving birth, but we're going to have a child.
Mm.
And I'm realizing there's so much to do before and
Mhm.
after as a supporting partner, right? Like a supportive partner. And there's so much. And in the Netherlands, I think legal paternity leave was like 2 days, 3 days before.
Mhm.
Now it's
It was.
becoming 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
So we need to cultivate the culture where men feel comfortable taking legal paternity leave. And
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, it has to be obliged for men or the other partners to take that time off to understand that first initial like acceleration. Okay, the baby comes and this is so critical for a baby's development and partner's well-being,
Yeah.
recovery. So in this, I would say gender equality for men at least, and they need to sort of, or the other partners, to understand the importance and their roles, and so that we will stop sort of glorifying almost motherhood. Some of my even friends say like, oh, mothers have like so like a bigger role in raising daughters and this like that. No, we're two mothers. We know we're both accountable for
Yeah.
our children's misbehaviors. You know, so I think it's important that we cultivate the culture where men can take paternity leave and feel comfortable and about it and feel proud of it, and then come back to work, and for women too as well. But
Yeah.
I think men are still stigmatized and then in that area. So we need to do it better for women.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also know that Alexis Ohanian, who is known as the former founder of Reddit, but I think the majority knows him as the partner of Serena Williams, who's a true advocate for men or the partner to have equal parental maternity leave as well, because it's a two people job, not a one person job, and it's also good for the baby to bond with both partners or with both parents as well. So I truly emphasize on that. And I want to say thank you to both Julies. Say thank you to Magali as well. And I also want to bring in something special as well. So some of you already know that I am organizing the Amplify DEI Summit, which now I've received at least 70 speaker proposals. So it's going to be crazy busy. But I also wanted to emphasize that if your company is looking for a way to make a baby step towards inclusion, equity, and diversity as well, or tie something in towards their commitment, again, a baby step, you can contact me or can look up the Amplify DEI, because we want sponsors to make this happen. So thank you all for watching this episode or joining this episode or maybe listening to this episode. I really had an amazing time with Julie Kratz and Yuli Kim and Magali Toussaint. It was an impactful episode which really touched my heart when it comes to DEI and parenting as well. So thank you all for watching this episode, and until not next week but the week after, and until then, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bisous. Bye bye.